Welcome back, everyone, to this week 2 edition of Bruce Monan's Computer Points podcast. I, of course, am Bruce Monan, your host, recording from the somewhat warmer basement studio in Minster, Ohio.
What, warmer?
It was cold last week.
Was it?
That's what I said on the podcast, at least.
Oh, okay.
Also, checking in from the greater Cincinnati area, home of those 1-0 Cincinnati Bearcats.
Hey.
We have our co-host, executive producer, and chief researcher, Rebekah Monan.
Always happy to be here.
I told you last week I was distracted. I had the Vuelta a Espana to watch. I still have one last week to go. A fun race as always. My man, Primož Roglič, now within 5 seconds of the lead after today's stage, as we are recording on a Tuesday here. It remains a rollicking, wide-open race, Rebekah.
A rollicking, wide-open race. That feels like a tongue twister. Oh, maybe it's just me. Maybe I can't do W's and R's back to back. Rollicking, wide-open race.
Anyway, my man, Mr. Roglič, should take the lead during the final time trial on Sunday, if not before. But, of course, he thought that at the 2019 Tour de France when a relatively unknown named Tadej Pogačar surprised all the analysts and took the win in the final time trial. So you can never count on it.
It's true. People pull out surprises in those big international top-tier
Sad news today, though. Sad news.
Sad news?
A cyclist named Wout van Aert, who's one of the best cyclists in the world, but most people don't know it because he doesn't win 3-week-long stage races.
Right.
He wins one-day-long ones. He was leading both the sprinters competition and the mountain climbers competition, which is unheard of in the third week of a Grand Tour. Crashed on a downhill today, hurt his knee, and dropped out of the race as he was winning those competitions.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was prepping for death with the way you were. Like, that's not good.
No,
that's
not
bad.
that sad. Not that sad. No.
But I was prepping for much worse.
No. Thank goodness. No. But enough cycling. I seem to remember last week, Rebekah promised us some gymnastics news, and I have been on pins and needles waiting to hear what it is.
I'm sure you have. Also a sad story coming out of the Olympics. Again, not bad for anyone physically. Just emotionally not great for America. No death. I don't know how closely our fellow listeners may have been watching the non-football and ball and foot related sports, but one of the hot streaming topics was gymnastics across the board. We had our men's team got a team bronze for the first time in like 20 years, and Simone Biles kicked ass. All great.
Some almost blind dude did really well in the pommel horse.
Steve Nedorosik, our pommel horse specialist, did amazing. It was all fun and great and amazing for America until we got to the floor exercise for the women. That one also went well, we thought, in that Simone Biles kicked ass, but came in second. But that is okay. The person who came in first was a lovely Brazilian woman named Rebekah, which is Rebecca, but Brazilian. She deserved it. She's amazing. The drama came in with the third place position. It was a tight competition between two Romanians and our own Jordan Chiles of a U.S. In the heat of the moment, in the event, the two Romanians scored very, very well. One of them got a penalty for stepping out of bounds, which bumped her out of third place. The other one did not, so she was in third. She was good. And then Jordan came and competed and fell below both of them until the U.S. Gymnastics Committee appealed that she should have gotten more points for her skills, which probably should have. They said, yep, you're right. You go at third. So we got a great podium scene of the Brazilian gymnasts and the two Americans on either side doing a fun little bow. It was really cool and a good picture. And then, like a week and a half later, not immediately, there was rumblings that, hey, maybe that one girl who stepped out of bounds didn't. And then they showed the video and she didn't. So she appealed. And they were like, nah, you may not have, but the time to appeal was in the competition. They said, great. And then someone said, hey. Yeah?
Because I remember the time to appeal was within 1 minute because they were claiming that Jordan Child's appeal was at 1 minute 13 seconds and it didn't count. And they went
Yeah,
back
that
and
kicked
counted
off a
and said, oh,
whole
it was
discussion
less than that.
about Jordan Childs' appeal. Because the rules for in-competition appeals is that you've got 4 minutes post the score being posted to appeal the judges. If you're the last competitor, you only have 1. So that whole stepping out of bounds thing kicked off a whole other closer look at all of the appeals processes. And they determined that the US appeal of Jordan's score came, what was it, like 4 seconds outside of the 1 minute mark, and therefore should not count. And the other Romanian girl should get bronze, which is something. I'm all for valid point scoring, but boy, telling someone a week later, hey, you actually got bronze, congrats, is a nice way to rectify a strange situation in which she was already celebrating bronze and got it taken away. The questionable part comes in where you then say, hey, you who've had bronze for a week and have been counting it in all of your celebrations and glory and United States total medal count, give that back. You don't get that. Give it back. Note, they have done multiple bronzes for the same event before. They've done multiple golds for the same event before. They've got extras. It happens sometimes. And this whole mess, I'm going to keep it short because this is a football podcast. Where we're at now is that the first Romanian girl who got third, and if none of the appeals went through, should have kept third. I'm not entirely sure where she's at, but I think she might also be in third place just to appease her. The one who didn't step out of bounds and appealed has the bronze now, and officially has the bronze. Jordan got kicked out of the whole thing, should be in 5th now officially. It's a mess. Oh, the U.S. Gymnastics Association appealed the appeal, saying, hey, you said we had 4 seconds past our appeal submission time. We have video that says we were 2 seconds under, and the International Court of Arbitration said, nah, we're not going to look at your evidence. Because they turned it in too late, because the Court of Arbitration told them that they could appeal a day before the deadline for the evidence due date. Anyway, it's interesting and frustrating, and none of it's good. And I think all 3 of them should have a bronze medal because it's a chunk of metal. Better that than traumatizing them all about dumb rules you're not even going to follow for yourself. Anyway, gymnastics.
I have 2 comments on that. One is that when you follow cycling, the cyclists will all tell you the Olympics are the worst run race they will be in 4 years.
Yeah.
Those people do not know what they're doing.
Yeah, largely it's like, yeah, it kind of sucks that the things changed, but if they would have just kept a consistent line in the officiant group and not gone wishy-washy back and forth, everyone would have been okay. But they've given out bronzes, they've taken bronzes back, they've agreed to appeals, they've rejected appeals inconsistently. And that's where the frustration lies.
Next question is, did the Olympic Committee then send a group of 6'5", 300-pounders at Jordan Child's house to physically take away her bronze medal?
I don't think so. I don't know. Officially, they've retracted it. I don't think anyone's gone to her house and demanded it back. And personally, if I were her, I would not send it in. So,
No, if she's retiring, I would just keep it. If she's going to compete more, they could probably not let her compete until she gives it up.
That's an idea. She's not. I mean, with the way Olympics gymnastics is going so far, she could probably go back to the Olympics. They're not cycling through gymnasts as quick as they were before. But also, this isn't her first Olympics, so she could retire and probably be satisfied. But it's a frustrating and fascinating situation.
On your multiple medal thing here, I was watching the men's high jump competition, and the
high jump happens
tied. The 2 tied, and then they have the choice to either both take gold or have a jump off, and they went for the jump off, which I don't know what the rules are, if they both have to agree to the tie or what, because it was obvious to me who was going to win the jump off, and if I was the other guy, I'd have gone for the tie.
It's a discussion between the athletes. That happened for, I think, high jump also last Olympics 4 years ago, and they agreed to take the dual gold.
Yes.
It happens. Like it very much happens in those sports that are not like timed to within an inch of their lives, or they're a little bit more arbitrary. Dual medals happen all the time. But yeah. Anyway, gymnastics. There's the drama for this year.
Yep. The good thing is, even though gymnastics goes on, most of us won't notice it for 4 more years.
Is that the good thing?
Maybe that's the bad thing.
We'll probably get some sort of recap at the next Olympics on what happened in all this drama this year.
It's true. But anyway, we've reached this far. Time to hit high school football, I think.
Time to hit high school football.
This is our week 2 results. By the way, now that much of the non-conference season is over for most teams, it is far easier to predict how many wins each team will need if they want to make the playoffs this year. It's only 2 weeks in, so the points are a little iffy yet. So we're going to concentrate this week on figuring out how many wins everyone is going to need to qualify for the playoffs. All right?
Is this team by team or conference by conference?
Team by team.
Oh boy. Okay. Lots of numbers this episode.
Lots of numbers. Not as bad as you might think.
All right.
Starting Division 1, Region 1. We are watching Findlay. They are still winless after 2 games. However, being Division 1, where 16 out of 18 teams make the playoffs, 2 wins ought to be enough for the Trojans to reach the postseason. Drew Pasteur still says they'll get 5 wins, so 2 sounds pretty likely. Drew Pasteur's computer does not know that Findlay's quarterback is out injured, so maybe the 5 is a touch optimistic too. We'll have to see.
Oh no. I was about to
It
say
didn't help
good.
them this
They're in a
week
good
when
spot.
they were. Yeah, it did not help them out this week when they were upset by Lima Senior.
No.
Speaking of which, in Division 2, Region 8, we're going to talk about Lima Senior.
That's good.
They scored their second quote-unquote upset here this last Friday over Findlay. They are actually projected to put a running clock onto all 8 of their opponents the rest of the season. So we are going to pencil Lima Senior in to the playoffs. We're going to say they're in. Sound fair?
Interesting. Yeah, we had them initially slotted at 13th with the caveat we thought they'd go higher, so I'm guessing we really think they're going to go higher.
I figured they would probably win most of those last 8 games. The 2 wins to start the season have been a pleasant surprise to me, at least. Also in this region, we have 1-1 Sydney. They'd likely need 4 wins to make the playoffs. They might make it with just 3. The computers say they can win 3 of the next 4 fairly easily. If so, that would be good because I don't really like their chances in their final 4 games of the season.
Okay.
So, Sydney, get your wins now. That leaves us with 1-1 Troy and 0-2 Piqua. They each need 4 to 5 wins to make the playoffs. I think Troy should easily get there. Piqua, they are currently projected to finish 5-5. They need 4 to 5 wins. They sound like one of the ultimate bubble teams here. A team we'll be keeping an eye on all season long.
Okay.
Division 3, Region 10. We follow 2 WBL teams, both 2-0 Lima Shawnee and 0-2 Defiance are going to need 4 to 5 wins to make the playoffs. Lima Shawnee currently expected to finish about 6-4. Only 2 games where they're major underdogs. 2 of their other losses should be closer games. They could be a little better than 6-4, a little worse than 6-4. But either way, probably enough to make the playoffs, it looks like right now.
Interesting.
Defiance, if you look at the old Drew Pasteur computer, they are expected to get to 5 wins. And I said they need 4 to 5 wins to make the playoffs.
Now, I don't know if this is a defect of my own notes, but I have it written down. We thought Lima Shawnee was going to come pretty close to dead last in the region.
You're right. They have not had a good year the last 4 years. They went 0-10 last year, I believe. They are 2-0 to start the season this year and looking pretty good. So,
looking very good compared to our estimations.
Oh, absolutely. And that's good. So a shout out to my man Chuck Curry, who is there working with the drums in the band this year. I'm sure he is the difference in why Lima Shawnee is 2-0 to start the year and potentially playoff bound. I'm sure those drums he's coaching has inspired the football team. Is that possible?
Maybe? I don't know. I thought they pretty much ignored band. I think that's mostly for the fans.
Now, I said Defiance is expected to get to 5 wins, which is what they need to make the playoffs. They have 4 games that I would say are basically pick'em games.
Pick'em.
Two that I have them slightly favored, 2 slightly not favored. So if those games go their way, they could end up with 7 wins and be looking really good. If they go the wrong way, they could end up with 3 wins and not be looking so good. So, and we all know if Defiance is in a close game, it's going to come down to those extra points and 2-point conversions. So another team definitely worth keeping an eye on this year. Suffered a tough loss to Wapak last week. Wapakoneta very good this year, so not a surprise.
Hard to not do a tough loss to Wapak.
All right, moving to Division 3, Region 12. We follow 6 teams here. I'll start with 2-0 Tip City. They are heavily favored to win all the rest of their games. So they are already in green on my little sheet. We have them penciled in, playoff bound. They're going to be there.
Great.
2-0 Wapakoneta and 2-0 St. Mary's play each other. The winner of that game will be made green on our sheet, and they will be considered playoff bound. And to be honest, the loser's going to be in the playoffs too. We just can't proclaim it yet.
Yeah.
To be honest, they're there. Okay. The other 3 teams we follow, they probably need 4 to 5 wins. They want to see the postseason. 1-1 Bell Fountain should be able to earn 7 wins, according to Drew Pasteur's computer. 1-1 Salina is a lot harder to predict. I look it over. I see 3 more likely wins. That would get them to 4. Plus 4 more games where they're favored, but by 1 score or less. So if things turn south for Salina, they could have trouble making the playoffs, but I honestly think they're going to make it in a few games. And that leaves us with 0-2 Greenville. Unfortunately, I really have a tough time seeing them winning 2 or 3 games, much less 4 or 5. This doesn't look like another not so hot year for Greenville. Oh, I almost forgot before we went on. I was going to put a score of the week in the middle of the podcast.
Scores of the week.
Do we have one? What's our score of the week?
Well, to be honest, the family was here this weekend. I was a little behind in getting this thing going here. You know, the grandson takes a little attention, or at least I prefer to give it to him. So I am proclaiming the score of the week to be at the game I was at. Minster 41, Columbus Afrocentric 14, because to make my daughter Alex happy, the score is a palindrome.
Hey, there you go.
And to be honest, at the game, my co-statistician, my wife Deb, noted that when the score became 41-14, Columbus Afrocentric went for a 2-point conversion. And she said, wouldn't it be a shame if they ruined the palindrome by getting this? That's the type of deep thoughts we have while we're doing stats at high school football.
Wouldn't it be just a shame?
So back to our regions, Division 4, Region 14. Most of the 6 teams we follow here will need 4 to 5 wins to reach the postseason. 1-1 Napoleon looks to be almost a lock for 5 wins, with 2 more games that look like potential wins in whether it's about an even toss-up against Fremont Ross and Sylvania Southview. So I could see them getting to 6 or 7 quite easily. The future looks a little darker for 1-1 Ben Logan, as I'm only seeing 1 more probable win on their schedule, and that will not be enough.
So maybe Van's underdog playoff team is not going to swing it.
Well, or the computer hasn't seen all of the good things that Van saw.
Or that. Yeah, that still could be an outcome.
Still early in the season. Computer hasn't quite got everything up to speed of this year's yet. It's working on it. 2 weeks in, they're getting close. Another couple weeks should lock things up pretty well, I would think. That leaves our 4 WBL teams here. And of these teams, those, of course, that finish higher in the conference standings have a better chance at the playoffs. These teams are Van Wert, Elida, Ottawa, Glandorf, and Kenton. I expect all of them to lose to Wapakoneta and St. Mary's, and all of them to have a hard time against Salina and Defiance. So that means the teams that do best against each other are the ones more likely to make the playoffs here. 1-1 Van Wert is favored right now to sweep those other three teams to get up to 5 wins and make them a probable playoff team. Elida, Ottawa, Glandorf, and Kenton are going to need an upset or two if they're going to reach the playoffs. In Region 16 of Division 4, we'll start with 2-0 Urbana. This is a tough region. Urbana is going to need 6 or 7 wins to make the playoffs.
Oh, that's a lot.
Fortunately, right now they are favored in their next 7 games. And 5 of those games, they are favored by 24 or more points. So I think Urbana is going to get there to at least 7 wins. So they should be okay. 1-1 Bethel could probably get in with just 6 wins. But if they want to get in, they have a streak of 4 straight weeks. They are underdogs later in the season. They will probably need an upset or 2 in those games if they're going to get up to 6 wins.
So do we think Bethel needs fewer wins than Urbana because they've got a harder schedule? Or what's the difference there?
Yep. If they get the opponents they have left, have more wins there, more computer points available, they should need just a little less than Urbana.
Okay. Okay.
It happens sometime. We'll get to some regions where we have more teams where there's going to be 2 groups, some that need 1 set of wins and some that need 1 more, 1 less. But we'll get to that here a little bit later.
Okie dokie.
Just as I'll give for instance, someone like a Parkway in the MAC is going to be playing Fullwater, Versailles, St. Henry, Marion Local, and Minster, and New Bremen only needs 2 or 3 wins to get there, whereas someone in a lesser conference is going to need a few more. So
Right.
Division 5, Region 18, we follow just 2 teams here. We're putting Liberty Center in the playoffs already. They are 2-0. They are 28 or more point favorites for all 8 games remaining on their schedule. I see no way they won't win enough of those to make the playoffs. Now, Liberty Benton is currently 1-1. They're going to need 6 wins, I think. Maybe 5 if they pull some upsets, beat some better teams, but they're probably going to need 6 wins. After this week's pretty much coin flip game against Macomb, they are 3+ touchdown favorites the rest of the way. So I like Liberty Benton too. I'm not putting them in the playoffs yet. I'm going to wait a week or 2 yet.
You like their odds, but not enough to lock them in.
Exactly. Liberty Center, I have no trouble locking it.
Oh, yeah. They'll be
Okay.
fine.
On to Division 5, Region 20. I think 4 wins should be enough to make the postseason for the teams in this region. So a little bit easier. 2-0 Versailles. I think we'll reach that 4-win mark in the next 2 to 3 weeks. 2-0 Miami East should easily get to 5 wins. And if they beat Springfield Northwestern this week, I can see them up to 7 or 8 victories before the season's done. 2-0 West Liberty Salem also looks good to end up at 7 or 8 wins by the time we reach the end of week 10. So those teams, we're not putting them in the playoffs yet, but we will be eventually. At 1-1, Lima Bath has a tough WBL schedule coming up. A win this week at 2-0 Lima Shawnee may pretty much lock up their playoff. It looks like a tough 50-50 type game again. As we said earlier, Lima Shawnee is doing better than expected this year, so that could be a tougher game for Lima Bath than the computers think right now. Indian Lake also 1-1. They look good for 4 to 5 wins, which would be just barely enough. Their week 9 game against Springfield Northwestern, we just mentioned them earlier, may be needed so that they have some breathing room on week 10. If they lose that game, they probably will need to win in the final week of the season. That's never a spot you really want to be in if you can help it.
Kind of want to relax in week 10 if possible.
Yeah, be playing for seeding, trying to get that home field advantage, that kind of stuff, right?
Trying out some new plays or locking down old ones. Don't want to be.
put some strange plays on film so that your playoff opponents have to prepare for it.
Psych
That
out
kind of good
future
stuff.
enemies. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, borderline. 1-1 Arcanum. Very borderline to me. They may need to beat Tri-County North in week 5 already. The game to watch. They lose that one, they're going to have a hard time getting to their 4 wins, I think. Who else? Milton Union, winless so far. They are a big favorite in 4 games this year. And I said 4 wins ought to be right on the line of what it takes. So they play 2-0 Oakwood this week. If they could win that one, I think they'll get to 4 wins quite easy, and they should be playoff bound. And then we have 0-2 St. Paris Graham. Yeah, they have the potential to finish the season without a win. They do not look like a playoff bound type.
Uh-oh.
Division 6. Okay, now we start getting a little
A little crunchy.
busier here. Yes, a little more crunchy, huh? You got to crunch a little more numbers here. Got to work on that grammar, Bruce. All right.
Gotta.
Okay, here's what I mentioned before. We have 2 sets of teams we follow here. Some will need 4 to 5 wins to reach the playoffs. Some will need 5 to 6 wins. So we'll start first with the group that needs 4 to 5 wins. I already have 2-0 Bluffton penciled in as a playoff team. They look like they're going to be 9-1 or 10-0 to me, depending on how they do in their game against Columbus Grove. At 2-0, Allen East is favored in every game the rest of the way, except against Columbus Grove and Bluffton. So they're feeling like an 8-2 type team. That sounds playoff worthy.
I would sure hope so.
Yeah. If Allen East beats Indian Lake this week, I think they pretty much are pretty much there. 0-2 Defiance Tenora has a tough game against Archbold this week. Archbold looking for a little revenge after St. Henry beat them pretty bad past week. But Tenora is favored. They're 7 games after this week. So they could start 0-3. They'd be favored to finish 7-3 and make the playoffs. Wayne Trace also 0-2 right now. They have a tougher road to travel. Watch out for them in week 5 when they play Edgerton. I think that could be the game that's the difference in whether they make the playoffs or not.
5 Edgerton.
So noted, huh?
If only my brain didn't immediately forget what team we were talking about.
Wayne Trace.
Wayne Trace. One of our teams to watch, according to Mr. Van.
Yes. Tough start, but they might make her though yet. Spencerville has a nice 2-0 start to the season. Unfortunately, they are an underdog throughout their Northwest Conference schedule until week 10. So they will be an underdog for the next 7 games.
Oof.
They need an upset along the way if they're going to make the playoffs. Parkway's currently 1-1. Mentioned them earlier. They need to find 3 wins in the MAC schedule, which seems unlikely. 2 wins if one of them's against one of the 55-5 type teams in the conference, maybe.
It's a tough ask either way.
It's gonna be a tough ask for Parkway. A new coach this year. They have more players on the team than usual, so we're still keeping an eye on Parkway. I'm not going to write them off just yet. The other teams we follow need 5 or 6 victories to qualify for the playoffs. We'll start with Patrick Henry, 2-0. They face Columbus Grove this week, and they face Liberty Center later in the season. 2 tough games. They should be favored in their other 6 games, however. So
okay.
Patrick Henry probably going to see the postseason. 2-0 Paulding has a similar path as they are underdogs against Sherwood Fairview and Defiance Tenora, but favored in their other 6 contests. So another potential 8-2 type team. Sherwood Fairview is currently 1-1. They may need that win over Paulding. But even if they lose that, they're favored to get the 6 wins, which I said should be enough. Boy, near that line again. Don't want to be too close to that line.
Now here's the question for your memory there, Dad. Test your memory. We stated in our preview episode that we think their playoff status could be determined by their week 1 game result. How did that game against Wauseon go?
It turns out, I had forgotten all about that, but it turns out that was a pretty good line that we threw out there in the preview.
Turns out when you take notes, sometimes they can help.
Well, as I said, it looks like they ought to make 6 wins and they need 5 to 6. Based on last year's results, they were a huge underdog to Wasion, but they won the games 30-12, it says. So, indeed, that was a big game for their playoff hopes.
Let's hope they can ride it out all the way to the postseason.
By the way, Fairview lost last week, but they were expected to lose by 3 touchdowns and only lost by 1. So, I'm thinking Fairview on the rise. They might do even a little better than that 6 wins before all said and done. For some reason, I can't do this without seeing your face.
I mean, is that a loss? It sounds like a pretty good time to me. I'm feeling good about my face today. I got compliments at work for my haircut.
Oh, excellent. Your hair's doing a little more of that little floofy thing at the bottom today.
Yeah, it's floofing out today. I tried curling it last night, and it looked really nice, but it ended up with a out flip that I don't know if I enjoy. But we're learning it. We're learning how to style.
Okay, moving on to the bubble teams in Region 22. Convoy Crestview is currently 1-1. They are expected to finish 5-5. They have a potential 6th win in Week 10 when they play LCC in a game that there may be a slight underdog, but this point of the year, that could change in a hurry. They might be a slight favorite. So Convoy Crestview, possible bubble team where Week 10 is going to matter. Van Buren, also, what is Van Buren? Van Buren is 1-1 right now. They are also favored to finish 5-5. I could see them easily drop to just 4 wins, though. They have a couple of games they're favored to win, but not by a lot. However, if they could upset Pandora Gilboa this week, that would make their playoff hopes much, much higher. Also at 1-1, we have Mount Blanchard Riverdale. They are favored this week against Arcadia. Then they and 1-1 Hicksville are underdogs for the rest of the season. So
that's
maybe
tough.
a little bit below the bubble for those 2 teams.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Oh, yes. I almost forgot. In Division 6, we follow 3 regions. We'll start with
Now,
Region
why would
23.
we do that?
Because we don't want to miss Mechanicsburg and Triumph.
That's true. We do not want to miss those 2 teams.
Both these teams probably need 6 wins to reach the playoffs. Mechanicsburg, 1-1, favored by 2 touchdowns or more in 6 of their final 8 games. That would get them over the mark. 1-1 Triad is the underdog for their final 8 games. They are going to have a struggle. It's going to take a few upsets to make the playoffs for Triad. Division 6, Region 24.
Let's go.
We only follow 4 teams here, and I already have 2 of them penciled into the playoffs.
We're confident about these.
We're going to start with 2-0 Coldwater. They are heavily favored until they play Versailles and Marion Local to end the regular season. We also have penciled in Anna at 2-0. I project they only need 4 wins to make it to the playoffs, and they should be heavily favored in at least 3 more games this year. And I mean heavily favored in those. If they just beat 2-0 Minster this week, they're pretty much in for good even without those. So Anna in very good shape in this week. Those 2 are currently ranked 1 and 2. The number 3 ranked team in the region right now is Covington, 2-0 after an 0-10 season last year.
Yeah, that's a heck of a surprise.
Yeah. I think they need 2 to 3 more wins that get them up to 4 to 5 total. They are currently listed as at least a 3-touchdown underdog for all but one of their remaining games. But remember, they went 0-10 last year. The computer might still be underranking them just
Might be a little bit biased, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not buying that one just yet. We'll see. We also have Lima Perry, who's 1-1. They probably need a 5-5 record, and they are expected to be in a lot of close games this year. I don't even want to predict what their record might be. A lot of their games are listed as if in a score one way or the other. They'll be fun to watch through the season. I'm sure we'll be commenting a lot on Lima Perry. On to Division 7, Region 26, our monster region, I believe.
It's pretty beefy.
All right. I think pretty much every team in this region needs 4 to 5 wins to reach the playoffs. A few of them with tougher schedules may sneak in at just 3 wins. I'm guessing it's only going to be a team or 2, not many, but the 3 wins, there's a chance. Okay. We are already penciling in Macomb and Columbus Grove. Both are 2-0. Both are huge favorites in 7 of their final 8 games. So I have them in the playoffs already.
Makes sense.
For Saudo Valley, currently 1-1, and an underdog against Waynesfield Goshen this week. And then they are favored to be victorious the rest of the regular season. So that should be a plenty of wins to make the playoffs. 2-0 Arlington appears likely to win 6 or 7 games. And so is 1-1 Hardin Northern and 1-1 Lipsick. So I like all those for making the playoffs eventually. Pandora Gilboa, 0-2 right now. I still think they look good to grab 5 or 6 victories. I just mentioned, though, someone previously has good incentive to beat Pandora Gilboa there. Get who it was already.
I didn't write that one down.
Oh, there it is, Van Buren.
Van Buren.
Pandora Gilboa favored against Van Buren this week, but
Watch out.
Watch out. Van Buren could win that one. I still like Pandora Gilboa for the playoffs. And boy, when you start 0-3, getting up to 5 or 6 wins gets a lot tougher.
It does. It really does. You'd like to get them in early if possible.
We have 3 teams here who look to me to be future bubble teams, as they
Boy.
are expected to end up with 4 or 5 wins this season. They are 2-0 Ada, 1-1 Antwerp, and 1-1 Lima Central Catholic.
Antwerp.
Yeah. Antwerp, I believe last year was about 9 wins, 10 wins, something like that.
Antwerp, we thought they'd come in second in the region at the preseason.
Yeah, they had a good start. They had a good last season, that's for sure.
Something about that one loss has knocked them down in our estimation.
Yeah, let's see here. Antwerp, eh? Group Pasteur has them as the 15th best team right now. Oh, yeah. They lost to Eden 55-6 last week.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it. That's rough.
And the computer had them favored to win by 27 points.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Antwerp.
So something's not quite as strong at Antwerp this year. Or they had one really bad game. They play Hilltop this week. I would expect them to win that. And then Edgerton next week. We mentioned someone else had a big game against Edgerton. I think that game by Antwerp against... Yeah. I think Antwerp's game against Edgerton is also going to be quite the important game.
Someone should tell Edgerton that they're the playoff maker for a bunch of teams in the region.
No, don't tell them that. Tell them they are the playoff ruiner for a bunch of teams in that region.
There you go.
The playoff spoiler.
They've got the power. They are the spoilers.
That's a lot more fun. All right.
That is a lot more fun.
Okay. Delphi St. John's, 1-1 currently. I think they can sneak in with just 3 wins. And they are favored to win 2 more games this year. But as I said, they could get into 3 wins. They'd be better off with 4. They need an upset somewhere. I'm kind of eyeing their Week 10 game against New Bremen, although New Bremen's got a strong start. That might not be the team to beat either. So they're going to need an upset or 2. Another team needing an upset or 2. 0-2 Defiance Ayersville. They're only favored to win 1 game. They're going to need a couple of upsets. Then we get to 1-1 Delphus Jefferson, 1-1 Corey Rawson, 0-2 Arcadia, and 0-2 Van Loo. The old Drew Pasteur computer does not favor any of them to win any more games this year. So they all need a lot of upsets to make the playoffs. Okay. Our final 11-man football region, Division 7, Region 28. I actually have 7 teams here in green.
Wow.
That I think are already pretty much in the playoffs based on what they've won and games that there's almost no chance they're going to lose the rest of the way. That's what you get in Division 7 sometimes. Only 20. There are only 25 teams in this region. There's a few teams in this region who are not going to be competing for a playoff spot. So that means there's only a few you have to beat out. It's almost like Division 1. We'll start with 2-0 Marion Local. They are a large favorite in all their games until Week 10 against Coldwater.
Right.
2-0 New Bremen. ISHO only needs a 3rd win to reach the playoffs. They should get that against Parkway this week. We shall see. They are favored at least. 2-0 Minster probably needs 2 more wins. But they have 2 games where they are expected to see a running clock still left on the schedule. That should be their 2 wins. St. Henry, just 1-1. They need 2 more wins. They also have 2 games on the schedule where I think they'll probably see a running clock. And we have Waynesfield Goshen, 2-0. They are favored every single game this
Every
year.
single game.
Every single game. Now, going down a little farther on the list, we have 1-1 Ansonia. They lost to Riverside, I believe, in week 1. They have 5 games where they are currently favored to win by 5 or more touchdowns. I think 6 wins gets them in the playoffs with about 2 wins to spare.
Yeah, probably.
So, I like Ansonia for the playoffs. Tri-Village, very similar, also 1-1. They are favored by 32 or more points in 7 of their 8 remaining games. I like Tri-Village for the playoffs too.
Oh, Division 7's a little ridiculous.
It is. Okay. Most of the rest of the teams here need 4 wins if they want to play in week 11. 3 wins could provide an outside chance. Those favored to get to that 4 wins include 1-1 DeGraff Riverside, who is favored in their final 8 games. 1-1 Ridgemont is favored to finish 6-4.
Okay.
So even if they suffer an upset loss or 2, they should still get there. Sidney Lehman also expected to get the 6 wins, although they're expected to have a lot of close games. That's one of those teams where the record can vary quite a bit. So we think things look good for Lehman, but they're going to have to earn it. It's not going to be easy. The most intriguing team to me in this region would be Fort Laramie. Currently 0-2 0-2 after playing Minster and Versailles. Now they start their first year playing in the Northwest Conference, which means they have Bluffton and Columbus Grove on the schedule.
Oh,
not likely to be wins for Fort Laramie, so that could put them at 0-4. They are favored in 3 games in the conference right now, according to the computers. They might need a 4th one. 6 games total of that conference. I think they're good enough to get 4 wins. The computer says 3. We shall see. And 3 games might be enough. I just don't know about that one.
That's pretty tough. That's a hard ask.
It's going to be a good one to follow throughout the season, I think.
Yeah.
Teams in danger of missing the playoffs include 1-1 Fort Recovery. They are a large underdog in all but one of their remaining games. Bradford is 0-2. They are favored in 2 games, but that would still leave them a game or 2 short. 1-1 Miss Cinnamal Valley and 0-2 Troy Christian, underdogs the rest of their games. So they're probably in a lot of trouble. Hey, and guess what? We get to do 8-man football this week.
We get to do 8-man football this week.
The 8-man Northern 8 Conference started play this week after taking week 1 off. They'll be playing through week 11. So their last regular season game is actually when all the 11-man teams are playing the first round of the playoffs. Kind of intriguing. I kind of like it, actually. Not sure why, but I kind of do.
It's fun and new.
So first week, we had Sandusky, St. Mary, Pluto Christian, and Stryker earned non-conference wins. Holgate, Lakeside Danbury, Southington Chalker, and Fremont St. Joseph took losses. Sebring McKinley had an open week. Now, I communicated with the Northern 8 League Commissioner, and he confirmed that the conference standings are what they are using to determine the 4 playoff teams. So we'll be tracking the conference standings here. And when teams play each other twice, only the second matchup counts in the conference standings.
Oh.
So this week, Sandusky St. Mary beat Fremont St. Joseph, but that game does not count in the conference standings. It counts like a non-conference game.
Interesting. All right, this will be an interesting process to see develop as we go through the season.
Yeah, I'm really curious. Every other year, which there's been like 2, not that much.
Right.
It just worked out. Like last year, the top team was 6-0. The number 2 team was 5-1. The next team was 4-2, and the next one was 3, or something like that. They all had different records. What if there's a tie in the conference standings?
What if there's a tie?
I forgot to ask that question. So we'll be checking that out. By the way, also for your information, Rebekah, and potentially for any ones out there, the commissioner said it is still undecided if the title game will return to Liberty Center or not. They are also entertaining moving it to a location on the eastern part of the state, the 2 teams over there.
That would make sense.
And you know what just jumped into my head? If Liberty Center was a great spot with lots of great fans that would come to the game anyway. The first place that jumped into my mind on the east part of the state, Northeast, was Kirtland.
Kirtland.
That could
Ooh.
be a fun place to host the
Okay.
game. I don't know what they're looking into, but that's the one that jumped into my head.
I was thinking the good old Football Hall of Fame stadium there, but I don't know if they'll get the sway for that.
Well, they did have that good college football game where they showed the bands play the whole show this week. That was
They
nice.
sure did. And judging by the crowds there, I think 8-man football might draw similar numbers.
It might draw about the same number as that game did.
That's
are
what
right.
happens when you bring a small college football game up from South Carolina to Northeast Ohio. The fans don't really travel.
That is true. Yeah, I'm betting against that being the location for the 8-man game, but hey, if you don't ask, you can't get it, so might as well ask, right?
Might as well ask.
They probably
Worst they can
charge
do is
big
say
rent,
no.
though. They probably
Oh
charge a
yeah,
lot
the
of
worst
rent.
thing they might be able to do is say yes and then give us a bill.
Yes.
That might be worse than a no.
Well, anyway, that about wraps things up. Rebekah, would you like to read the credits/disclaimers here this week?
I sure would. This is going to be the highlight of my week. This was Bruce Monin's Computer Points with Bruce Monin and Rebekah Monin. You can rate and review us on this show on Apple Podcasts or just Apple Podcasts. Nowhere else is there ratings, I guess? Anyway,
Not
if you've
that I
got a
know of.
comment or question, you can send that to bdmonin@nktelco.net or submit it on Twitter or X to @BruceMonin, where it may be used on a future episode. In fact, as of right now, I'll guarantee it's used on a future episode. Unless Mom says no. Or you can place your thoughts in the comments section of our YouTube page where we are posting videos accompanying each of these podcasts. It's a lively place for a discussion. We just need to start the discussion. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded, such as the Apple iTunes Store, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or on our YouTube channel. Wow! Just search for Bruce Monin's Computer Points. It'll come up before you're finished with the word Monin. We'll be back next week after week 3 of the regular season. I think this is still Dad's script, but I'm talking. We're going to concentrate more that week on the actual computer points instead of the theoretical report of this week. So look forward to that.
Well, thank you, Rebekah. Good job.
Thanks.
And for all of you out there, that wraps it up. We'll see you next week, and so long, everybody.